Why don't we stand and see how it finishes?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve. We didn't have a quorum to do the November minutes in December, so two separate motions. One motion to approve the November 7th regular session.
So moved.
Second. And I believe we can now, correct? Yes. Okay. All in favor? Abstention? And then a motion to approve December 5th regular session.
So moved. Second.
And all in favor? Abstention? Okay. Shall we go to the report?
Sure. So you have the current report in your packet, which I don't think has changed a whole lot in the last month. I think we've known right from the get-go that the out-of-district tuitions were going to be a challenge, but I still feel like we'll be able to cover them because we had movement, especially with year-end salary changes, teacher retirements. I still think we're okay. So it hasn't gotten worse. It's just pretty much where we were at the beginning, which is the reminder that that'll segue into our conversations when we're talking about next year's budgets, because the shortfall we have this year we'll have to be planning to cover next year. And we're even covering some of this year's shortfall with balances that we had in the circuit breaker revolving funds. So we're kind of depleting what we had there for reserves. But the message for this year is we're staying optimistic and we should get through fine. Nothing else significant has popped up, so we should be good for the rest of the year. What is your preference, to dig that right into fiscal 21 or to get other business over with and then go back to the budget? Page by page review. Your call.
Those June showcases. Why don't we just
Do you want to dig
it?
into it?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Oh.
Here we go.
I left my Christmas gift.
Here.
Oh, we have some right here.
We bring
Oh, and I did open it.
Did you at
before
least, I was going to say, did you,
Christmas.
oh,
Yes,
she
I
did.
did.
I opened mine today.
Erin needs a copy too.
You
So,
have enough for me, because I
Yep.
can share with Mary if I need to.
yep, nope, we got a couple more.
Thank you.
We understand it. Right. I got you.
Oh, do you want one? Kathy, is there another one?
Yes.
There we go.
Insurance home as well, hers.
Here we go.
That's okay. I really feel like you know your budget pretty well.
I do.
This is not with sarcasm that I say. I'm actually excited to have a newbie who hasn't been through the process, so that it's not just for me. They know the drill, but we're gonna go through the drill from the big, just to give Karen a little bit of, background on what we have to look forward to. So, just so you know the process, Karen and others who probably could tell you the process. This is the first run through. We're gonna go through page by page what we feel is necessary to continue the services and the service level that we've got in the building right now. This is the first time that you guys are hearing, our thoughts or our needs. You ask questions, we respond almost to all the questions. On occasion, there's one that we'll make notes and get back to you, and I would certainly get back to all of you if any one of you has if we walk out of here with questions that weren't answered. So this is really just your time to understand and ask questions and get them answered. It's all about school committee tonight. Then there's no votes taken. We walk away. We spend the next month either answering your questions, or if you come up with anything that you didn't think to ask, feel free to shoot us an email. We'll get you the information. By the time we come back in February, hopefully two things. One is the governor's first budget is due out the end of January. So that's kind of our first peek as what the state funding is going to look like, which helps us gauge whether what we're asking for is affordable to the towns. It's a little bit further into the process before we know what other departments' needs and what the overall town finances are, but that's usually a good sneak peek, and to be completely honest, I don't know what to expect this year. Because the new bill that was passed that was supposedly not a financial bill is all financial. So no idea yet how they're going to try and implement that and what the financial impact will be. So we'll try and stay optimistic. But most importantly, despite, we'll share with that a little bit, in February, what you'll be asked to vote as a committee is the budget to move forward to the March public hearing. So it's not etched in stone for sure, but usually if there's something that we might not, ultimately, if we have to cut, we would cut. We wouldn't cut it yet in February. We'd say, let's move forward to March until we know a little more and ask for, and you're really voting just a bottom line dollar figure. Because the committee has complete control throughout the whole year of if things get transferred from line to line. What you're going to vote ultimately in March, after you have a formal public hearing where people, and some always do in Sturbridge, finance committee members come, some staff, occasionally selectmen or the town administrator will come and have kind of a formal one more review of it. If we've done our job right, there's not a whole lot of questions by then because people have already asked. But we go through that formal process, you take any public input or hear their questions, and at the end of that meeting in March, you will formally vote the budget the bottom line dollar budget that you're sending to the town meeting. So that's really the big, and again, it's just the total dollar. You've been to some town meetings, it's one big school number in a town meeting. They don't get to decide within line items how you spend it, that's all yours. So you're sending $1 amount to town meeting, and hopefully people have come and asked questions beforehand if they want to. So there's no votes happening tonight.
Just so you have an idea, because I know you came in before town meeting last year, because that's when we
Right,
did it
just
now.
before,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Yes, I know.
Right.
So what ends up happening though, if something gets really tight and we have to ask for something differently, and all of a sudden as things are coming to fruition, if we have to change it from the public hearing to the town meeting, sometimes we have a substitute motion, sometimes we have to ask for things out of different sources of funding from the town, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So those things aren't uncommon. It doesn't happen every single year, but we do even after we leave in March, if there's still some things that become, unforeseen or some things completely out of whack, then we have the ability
Yeah, we
to
could
still
still be
move,
having
and we're still able to be
articles.
nimble,
Yeah.
like a special article, sorry, not a substitute motion, special article at the town meeting, or,
Well,
also
yeah, I mean,
funding
we
source.
have substituted also, because
I was
if
gonna
the
say,
number
we
we
could
put
have
in,
done-
it's gone to print, it's sitting there as your formal request.
Yeah.
So
We've even gone in and asked for less.
on rare occasion, we
Very
have
rare
gone
occasion.
in, literally on, in June, with a substitute motion to say, we would like to lower that number that, we asked for it, you may have already recommended it, but we don't need it, so we're
Twice
not
in
gonna
15
ask for it.
years.
Or things are really tight and they've been trying to balance things, but, again, I kinda get I usually have a feel by February whether this is gonna be a rough season or not, either because we've heard from other departments or finance. I actually did not know until earlier today, I think Kevin Smith is our liaison again. We had not heard back. I did over the holidays send another email to Kevin. Well, the first time I sent just a Kathy, but I did copy Kevin this time, thinking maybe he was, to say, just a reminder, we're kicking off tonight. If you are the liaison and want to join us, awesome. If not, he did respond today that he couldn't make it tonight, but that he would absolutely connect with me at some point during. So I'll make sure after tonight's meeting that I give him a copy of the detail, because I don't share that with others until you guys have seen it and worked through it. But yeah, I think it's Kevin that we'll be working with again this year, so that's good. All right, so we're gonna go page by page. Sometimes not line by line if things are pretty obvious, like page 1. Okay, first of all, are you on? Karen, we skipped the first 7 or 8 pages, which is the summary document, and then we're on kind of the second page one. Is she, oh, look, I'm sorry, we only gave,
Yeah,
if
so you're good.
it didn't come from your packet, then we're right there. We didn't give you the summary. Those first few pages, when you're at home and look at your packet, are actually the document that we use in March. So we'll go through that. So we're here on page 1. And we look at what's been spent last year and the year before and what the run rates are looking at this year. So given all of that, what our expenditures have been, again, legal services, you could blow out in any given year if you've got a lawsuit. We have not had that for a while. We do not use legal services for negotiations. So we think that we can level fund these lines and be fine.
Can I ask a question? This has been a burning question I've always
Yep.
had. Where does, because I don't feel like we use any of these like conventions, or like the 3,500?
Yeah, your dues and conventions for, the biggest chunk for you guys is paying the MASC dues.
Okay.
So even though you don't go, but on occasion, one of you might want to go to the November thing or trainings or registrations.
Trainings.
Yes, but most of it, I think it's probably, it's 1,500 to 2,000 just for the MASC membership.
So if it's just a year where we're just paying the dues, then where does the extra go?
Well, like every line item, whatever's extra at the end of the year gets turned back to the town.
Okay.
But we will have conversations, for example, right now, you've got a big fat negative in your out-of-district tuitions. We would normally be panicking if we thought we were gonna spend everything on every other line. But we look at the others and say, will there be extra to cover? And we know there will be in salaries because we had a couple of retirements after we set the budget.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, we know that, we're not gonna spend that. In other years, it'd be like, all right, let's not do this, so we can get through. But the bottom line, whatever bottom line money is left in totality, turns back to the town for free cash.
Plus, the other thing, we obviously are, we don't get a stipend, we don't take a salary as a
Yeah.
school. We're a volunteer committee, and we have been for as long
And
as
that
I've been
line
here.
is
And it's
here.
our ability to be able to go ahead, if we so chose, for all 5 of us to want to go to the convention, that's kind of like something that we are afforded the ability to, because it's our professional development as a committee. I've been to various ones, not the big convention or anything, but it's there, so if we, in one year we all wanted to go, we could go.
Right.
And I've called our dues paid for us to be able to also kind of have access. Like I've called Glenn Kuchar before and had conversations with
Absolutely.
him. And that, you can't put a dollar figure on.
And they'll come, they've come out on occasion and.
Yes,
just-
you do.
And they don't charge us for that, if that's part of the membership. The other thing, actually, this year, we'll hit that line a bit for some of the retreat costs, for those of you that attend the retreat.
Okay, thanks.
All right. The other thing, before we even get there, no, I'll wait till we get there, on salaries, it's all good. Page 2, this is, I think you were all at the joint meeting, yes? Karen, I do remember, the combined meeting that we had in October with all,
No, I had.
you weren't at that one. Oh, I thought we had a full house, so.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So at that meeting in October, all 6 committees voted next year's central office budget. So they voted in totality, which is over $1 million. They voted, and we presented, it's primarily salaries, central office salaries, a little bit of expenses to run the office, et cetera. So what this is Burgess's share of that total budget that was voted in October. Okay? So when you break it all out, the notes of interest is Burgess's piece of the pie, so to speak, is pretty darn close to exactly what it was this year.
Right.
The 24.12% versus the 24.08%. So the bottom line increase for all of central office isn't a whole lot. It's a little tiny bit uptick because of that percentage change, but it's mostly, the budget itself is I think, a 2.5% increase. Okay, page 3. Right. So you've got your principals and assistant salaries are the 3 individuals, your 2 assistants and your principal. So that's down a little bit because you had a retirement and replacement came in at a lower salary. Your front office salaries, it's really down a tiny bit, almost level, and that is because there was turnover there. It actually took us a year to put that all permanently in place, but in the last year and a half, there's been turnover there, which allowed us to just kind of leave that level. And then the rest of the items, we, try and explain what kinds of things go into the principal's other expenses and the supplies and materials for principal's office, but we've been doing okay the last couple of years, and despite occasional increases in maybe one area, the other has held or gone down, so we think we can level that and be okay. If there's no questions, page 4. So page 4 is the beginning of your professional salaries, and most of you know this is another new for Karen. We will be negotiating this year for the professional teaching staff. With the 2 contracts, last year we negotiated the support staff. So every line in here for the support staff is negotiated, done, locked in, is what it is. What we do for negotiating purposes, because we won't be done with negotiations usually until close to the end of the year, is we put a pool of dollars, an anticipated guess pool of dollars for negotiation. We in theory, we move everyone up on whatever steps or degree changes that they would have, and then we take a pool of dollars. We add to this line here, the big whomping teacher one, we add all of the pool of dollars for everyone in that unit. So later on, you might see a line, guidance or nurse or something that looks level funded. It's because the potential negotiation dollars are in this line item. Once negotiations are done, we'll do transfers to send them out to whatever line items are needed. So that's important to find out down the road. If you see something that looks level, like somebody's not getting a raise, they are. But also, if you calculated what the increase is on this line, it's larger than you would normally see if it was just some step and column movements, because it's got everybody else's raises also.
Right.
Okay? So that being said, this line doesn't have any additional staff. It's current staff, current staffing levels at every grade and support, and just simply has the step movement, the column movement for degrees, those that we can anticipate, sometimes we miss them, and a pool of dollars for negotiations.
Just out of curiosity.
Yep.
Where is the computer?
That'll be down
Teacher-
further.
Okay.
Yep, it's its own line. Right. The computer guidance, you're right. I mean, I guess computer's probably the only instructional one that isn't in this.
Well,
one,
some of
right?
the other
Computer
specials
and
are out
library,
there.
computer and library are separate
they are.
as a support,
library.
which is interesting because over time, it's become more integrated in the classroom, and that's an evolution of technology. The grant funds here in the past, we've had, that line has typically subtracted about 105,000, I think, but Title I funds are decreasing federally and statewide, so we did put what current year Title I funding level is, which is about $10,000 less to put towards this line item than we had last year. So that would make the bottom there a little bit different. Actually, if I look, it was 100,000 last year. If you see the subtotal in fiscal '20 versus the actual, it's $100,000 lower, but we're
Is that
only going
95
95 for this
FY20?
year, for 2095, so we pulled back 5,000. Substitutes, we're increasing as it says there, just because we have, once again, January 1st saw another increase to the minimum wage, and it will increase again next year,
So on
until
EL
2015. I'm sorry, goes up to $15 in
22.
Was there a question? I'm
It's
sorry,
on the
Kate.
next one.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just about ELL. It
Okay.
has an addition of an
Yes, so now's the
instructional
talking
assistant.
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
But are we seeing an increase in the number of English?
Yes, so there you go.
Yeah, so we started off, if you
Here we go,
remember,
first talking point.
4 years ago, we had 2 or 3 students. We're at 28. We actually had 9 children enroll over the break, and 4 of the children that are coming in will require ELL services.
13 kids over break?
No,
Oh,
nine
Nine
children enrolled.
And then
And
4
of-
were already in?
So four
them.
of
the
them
nine.
have been receiving
Oh.
EL services
Oh.
elsewhere.
Okay.
So we're at 20, actually, we're at 28, adding the
Okay.
additional students.
So is this
in.
gonna be that we need for this year now? Are we gonna have to tap into something to get this now?
We're
We
trying
already
to use a little bit, be flexible with a paraprofessional and looking at scheduling. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Right,
exactly.
yeah, we're looking at it. So what we've done up until now, where above that, you see, actually the page, it's on the same page, right? Under the teaching, professional teacher thing, you see ELL share.
Yeah.
What we've done for the last couple of years, and we'll attempt to for one more year, is have a full-time ELL specialist that covers all of our 6 schools. Right now, and full disclosure, we've just kind of divided that by the percentage that the central office budget is, which is like what percentage of the piece of the pie is, as opposed to by students. Right now, if we look at how much Sturbridge is getting of that person, it's more than the,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
what was that,
Yeah.
24%. Right, it's more than 24% because you've got a bigger piece. Now, there is an uptick in other schools also, and statewide, this is something we're gonna continue to see. They predicted that 2 years ago, and they were right. So this is why our proposal right now is not yet to get a full-time ELL professional teacher for Burgess. Let's spend another year sharing that person, but get a full-time support instructional assistant to help with the load that's coming in and see if that model works. And then if it's not, we're gonna come back, or if it keeps up ticking the year after, we might be saying Burgess can no longer share, they're gonna have to own their own. Okay. And then teaching supplies and materials, we seem to be doing okay, so we're leveling. Page 5. That's the big decrease that we're already seeing. We're seeing money left on the current year financial statement because we had retirements, special ed teacher retirements at the end of the year. So when we replace them, if you look at your financial statement this year, you've got additional funds sitting there that are covering our district tuitions. But now when we look at actual staffing and their salaries for next year, so this is not a decrease in number of staff, this is just a decrease in the dollars for their salaries.
And there's no COLA. This would be an example of.
Correct, so, we put the current people where they will be next year, but we've not factored in whatever COLA they'll get for negotiations, so that number will be up a little higher, not likely up as high as 774.
Yeah.
Don't get excited, folks.
No.
Special ed assistants, I believe this is actually the same number we're at this year, it's a big number, 20 assistants building-wise is a big number, but this is often a number that you'll see going up and down, depending on what one-on-one services are, and move-ins and move-outs, but this year we're holding our own. I think new move-ins may be balanced with 6th graders that are going to be going, because if they're in 6th grade, they're going to be moving up to the junior high, and that becomes a junior high budget need, so we look at that to see. So that's actually good news, because every now and then it's up and up 1 or 2 bodies. And the homebound tutors, we increased just based on last year and the year before. That's a line item that in any given year we could spend very little, or we could have a significant homebound issue that we've got to provide a lot of service to. So we upticked it based on last year's. Yep, well, your only other, actually, your contracted services is up, and again, that's based on, it's a combination of based on use and the staff that you have in that. So the contracted services, your OT, your PT, are in-house, so to speak, and your music therapy would be in-house, your vision and hearing would be outside services, they're very expensive, but even that in-house group, as you have someone more experienced, they make more salaries, and we divide it out based on who's using what across the district, but We do have a
Had a big
staff
uptick,
that,
yeah.
a few years ago, we had a decrease because we had retirements. Now, those folks that we brought on are moving up the scale, but there's also been an uptick of services in this
Particularly in the
building.
area of vision.
Yeah.
The large.
Yeah. So that's a line item that's always a bit frightening. And we would certainly, we'll make sure, we'll get the notes together, because we've gone through this. I would certainly suggest that by, for February, but certainly for public hearing, that's a line that you might have folks want to drill in and hear more examples of what kinds of services and what's
Numbers
causing
of
that
kids
uptick.
and numbers of minutes and
Yeah.
things like that. We're happy to
So
provide that.
we'll get
Yep.
some more
Mhm.
detail on it. Okay, then we are on 6. You're good with that? The professional development, the coaches/team leaders is just a new line this year. Those are dollars that used to be in the regular professional teacher line item that we pulled out and put here because the state wants to see them reported separately. The flip side to that is this, those of you who have been here for a while will know that this area used to have subs. They used to want us to track the sub-usage for PD activities and put that in a state report. They no longer want that. They at least let all the subs go in one subline. Textbooks, the big thing that we think, we've been kind of holding, this is not by accident, it's by design. When we did Go Math 6 years ago, we paid for, in 3 years, we paid for 6 years of service. And then when 3 years after, we're like, okay, now we can start doing science, and we pay that off within 3 years. So now it's time, and the dollars have been pretty darn close to the same. Now it's time to get back into a Go Math agreement. We're only getting into a 3-year agreement this time around because the platforms are changing, technology's changing. We don't want to, and they don't want us to commit to 6 years because in 3 years, they're probably going to want to charge us more because technology is gone up. But what is embedded in here is we're 90% sure that they're going to let us pay for that 3 years of service in 2 years. So if we get that 2-year agreement, we can do that and keep this level funded. Anything else status quo, right? Okay, page 7, so there's the example of the singleton. So that is your technology specialist / technology teacher. Looks like she's not getting a raise. She certainly will. Once negotiations are done, we'll transfer in what we need. Your technology assistant is settled contract, is what it is. Your technician, that's your tool and belt fix-it guy, that you have one full-time and then you get a piece of, there's another person that district-wide helps a few schools, because we're just, especially in the summer when there's big projects and implementations, one isn't quite enough. Then we could go, I think, so that's,
Tech plan?
yeah, but if you didn't bring your own, I didn't send you that, you didn't make that copy,
I mean,
correct?
if we looked at it though,
So I can give you,
Yeah.
I looked at it, I just.
Yeah,
don't
right,
know.
so, I mean, we can
It's
talk
not
you
foreign.
through it.
It's smart board
It's
replacement.
not foreign to us.
It's smart board
experience.
replacement for the most part.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's also some infrastructure replacement that needs to occur.
Over on the technology hardware uptick?
Right,
Yes.
yes, and we see that
Um,
$54,000 increase.
What is their shelf life?
which, did we pull something out?
So, I mean,
gotta tell you.
we're currently at 8. It depends on the utilization of each machine though. So if a teacher is a high utilizer and it's, being, theirs will go sooner than somebody else's. Yeah. The new technology is different, so we have replaced a few of them, and the way that the camera is situated is different, and so I think replacement in years to come will be less expensive than it currently is.
I do have to say in full disclosure, and we'd have to look at our notes, but when I look at those of you who have the capital plan, 2021 actually has a line of 169, but we've only asked for 154.
Decrease the number of pieces.
Right, it's a 15,000, the mobile, was another cart of mobile
Right,
devices
right.
that I think the discussion was we could take that from a revolving fund.
Right, but the other thing was this
right here, the
Major infrastructure, the switches and that was.
Well, you're right, if you looked at last year's, this was a year, I think it went up from 100 to 200. And I was like, you know,
It was a big mess.
we just can't, it's one thing to build a 5 to 10 year capital plan, it's a different thing when you actually get there and say, can we fund it or not? And as we looked at our bottom line, everything else going on in the budget, we said, you know, we can't go from 100 to 200. We're gonna try and get from 1 to 154. Really good thing is your finance committee liaison is really good on supporting technology. So, I love that. Come on, Kevin.
The batteries are
Right.
cost. yeah,
So
so-
we pulled back a little bit on our infrastructure and pushed it back, but we definitely need to start putting back in replacing some of the switches and the batteries and access points. So that is an increase to kind of keep going with the technology we have. The software, it's especially iPads. Every time you bring on iPads, there's an annual fee. We pulled back a little bit from iPads because we've got Chromebooks cooking, but this is to catch up with the ones we have, plus all the software that we
Stay
use
current.
for all of the devices. So that's up a little bit.
Yeah.
Towards the bottom half, page 7, that decrease is not a typo. I'm not sure if you're aware that that will be a retirement.
Sarah has.
There's officially a
Sarah has
retirement.
submitted her.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm excited about the decrease.
Well,
One's all the way up. I always struggle with that one. I'm like,
Yeah. So, and you know, and it's rough when the singletons are sitting there, but, so there's still conversations about, you know, what the replacement model, what certification, et cetera, would be needed, because, again, you know, it's called librarian, but it's media, it's so connected with the technology end, which is why they're in the same category, really, that we gotta figure out what's the best, but there is a retirement,
But we
so-
would be able to, I believe at that rate, we would be able to fund a librarian if that's what the replacement was. So
Yeah.
somebody right out of
Yeah.
school. That's what we end up. If there's somebody.
So that's a plug figure, but it's certainly a comfortable one. And everything else on that page is status quo. Page 8, the tiny uptick there on guidance salaries is just someone who's moving a step or a degree, and otherwise it's the same staff. Yep. Same thing with your school psychologist, 3.0, there's step movements in there. And again, the not really level funded for your nurse, sitting there, and your nurse assistants, which there are 2 of now, one of them is an RN. And that's a settled contract. Then way down the bottom, we did add for SNAP software, and I cannot maybe right now remember what SNAP stands for. It's the student.
School nurse,
School,
yeah.
Is it now? But it's something else.
Administrative program.
Something
Sounds
like
really
that.
good.
That's exactly, I
Maybe.
exactly.
We had
Something
it.
like that. Yes.
It really provides more in-depth tracking of students and their health records, some of which get shared to the state, not, I mean, at a high level. But the nurses have been pushing for a couple of years. They all used to have SNAP. You might look familiar, because those of you who have seen budgets for years, SNAP used to be in there. Then when iPass came along, iPass has a iHealth component that we thought we could take advantage of and save money, and the nurses are like, no, it's not robust enough, it doesn't give us what we need, so. And it is, the software is, well, ironically, Burgess will be the highest price because it's per user, so it's not based on students. It's based on user, and you've got 3 users, where in the high school we'll just have 2, and all the others 1, so.
I have a question, and I apologize if I've asked about this before, but it always occurs to me at the start of the school year, the registration, like the paperwork that comes home for parents to physically fill out, and there is some medical component to that. Have we ever looked at something online that we can all just kind of like check, like, yep, it's all the same primary care, same insurance, that kind of stuff that's hooked into something like this.
Yeah, I don't know that we've looked at actually going in and doing it online.
Right, but we do the biographical, the iPass biographical that you get that just confirms that, you know, who we're releasing your child to. So you're not, that's not redundant.
Right.
Or should it be?
But
So the
there's-
paperwork you're getting has at least last
I
year's.
think that from a health perspective, you're required to because health can change it.
Correct, and so we do the emergency card. That's
And-
year after year.
But isn't there something like, is somebody physically typing that in your office to have it be electronic?
At least the health offices, actually.
So I'm always like amazed that we're still doing this on paper, and it's annoying because you get it for every kid.
Yeah.
And it's the same, you know what I mean, other than the name, it's the
Yeah,
same.
no, you're right. It's
No,
not-
and we hear it, which is why the demographics, what we can control should come to you now auto-populated. The medical seems not to be able to be done, but we can certainly look into that. Maybe that is a piece of why SNAP is one of the
Be an
better
unfunded
tools.
mandate to go to EMR in schools. Be careful.
There you go.
But we
But
can
yeah.
definitely.
It is
It
rough.
would be a time saver for your staff too. It
Absolutely.
pains me to think this,
Yeah,
I'm
no, you're
scribbling
right.
it like, oh, why do I do
Yeah.
this again?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hope someone can read this.
Right, and as Deb was saying, like, part of the advantage of SNAP is being able to access information from other points, so like immunizations and things like that, where we
Right.
spend a lot of time updating that.
Yes.
SNAP has the ability to handle that differently.
Yeah. And to be the devil's advocate, I get it completely. Could we save both our time
Agreed.
and the staff's time? On the other hand, I take a little comfort that a live body actually has to enter this and it will trigger them to know of something. I get when it's the same thing year after year, but if it's a new person or a
New allergy or
something,
new whatever.
when they're entering it, because it is just the nursing staff, it's not, you know, an administrative assistant down the hall, it's the actual nursing staff that then will be looking and working with the kids. Sometimes it triggers to them, oh, okay, I gotta pay attention to this, as opposed to it's just uploaded and then you don't realize it until something happens and you have to go and look them up.
There was a
So,
change, yeah.
but we definitely will make notes of it and see if we can save something. Page 9. Planning the same number of bus routes. We've had for a few years the 16, and the same staff with your mechanic and your coordinator. So there's just an uptick there for increase in salaries of the COLA. And they do have steps, but there's not a lot of steps. It's like, you know, I think, 0 to 3 and then 3 to 10 and then over that. We are hoping to continue replacing, as we have for many years, 2 buses per year. That seems to be the model that works in Sturbridge, so we continue to do that. We did, I believe the line is actually probably a little bit short this year because the bids came in a little bit higher than anticipated, so we did the actual and then added a couple percent of this year's actual for the buses for next year. Other than that, though, we've been holding pretty good as far as maintaining them, replacing tires, et cetera. And that gasoline, it's up and down and up and down, but we made it last year in this, so we figure we'll hold tight in there. The continue to creep up is that changing it actually across the board to specialized transportation, because it's not only special ed, as you've heard in the past, it is the uptick in homeless and foster care placements, and our obligation, and rightfully so, to get these kids to the best place to continue their education. But it is an increasing thing. The only hopeful good news is maybe in a year we'll start seeing a little bit of reimbursement for all of this, actually, because there's the talk of having transportation part of special ed circuit breaker calculations, and there's also all ongoing efforts to try and corral the homeless and foster care costs and maybe get some reimbursement. But it is a number that keeps going up. And just the reminder for Karen, though, that number on the specialized transportation is for all Sturbridge students age 2.9 to 22. So, it makes you feel a tiny bit better when you realize it's elementary and secondary costs, so that you're only paying for the cost of your kids transporting both, coming here to those yellow buses. We have like 6 or 7 that come here every day, I think, as well as those long-term singleton ones that, they go out to Northampton every day and really add up. So that is a line, if you look in the past couple of years, we probably went more than 25,000 over last year, and I'm just trying to incrementally get it up and hope we can get through. On page 10, we, again, all same number of custodians, all current custodians based on where they are and where their steps are and COLAs. What else is happening? The fuel oil, I'm upticking a little bit. We did already get our bid results, and the price for next year is gonna be about 4% higher than this year, so I looked at last year's utilization and increased that. Electricity, we looked at last year's use and have gone down based on what last year's expenses were. I think we are, those of you who've been here a while knew it took us forever to corral that line, and we were always low. The engineers, the architects and engineers clearly lowballed what it would take to run this building, but now that we ramped up, the town has entered into net metering credits and is getting a lot of credits for solar across all of its accounts. So I think that's what's starting. It's not a decrease in utilization because we've brought in more technology. But I think those net metering credits are starting to have a very positive impact, so that's the good news. The water and sewer fees are up just based on what it cost us last year, so it's not even anticipating increases. When the selectmen come and visit, then we can ask them if there's any plan on that. And all the others, we kept level based on last year's expenses. If we want to jump to the building projects, for those who have their Christmas packet, we do list out the capital plan that the projects in there are to where, it's the guardrails. Right, so it's the entrance coming in to replace all the guardrails on both sides, and there's a $10,000 software update needed for your EMS, your HVAC system.
EMS or HVAC?
It's
EMS is the vendor.
Right.
Oh, I was like, what?
No, it's HVAC, which is why it's in facilities.
Okay.
But it's a technology
everything
software
is, yeah.
update to your HVAC
Yeah.
system, which can be controlled remotely, can isolate which areas have issues. So it's those two items on the capital plan this year. All right. And then, yeah, there's a little bump up on the maintenance of equipment based on some of, it's primarily the HVAC little things that the building is new but not new anymore. We call our buildings new forever, and we forget that, 1,000 pairs of feet and then all the human feet run through it every day. And very quickly, there are things that we actually need to plan on a little more maintenance than we have. Any questions there? I'm on page 11, where, as far as new equipment, we're not asking or planning any, and we're just gonna continue paying the leases on the copy machines. And then there's the lovely final 4 lines, which are always the ones causing us argita. And if I pull again, this isn't a surprise to any of you. As you see, current year, we're $90,000 short in that category. So this is truly just anticipating all of the current students, where they're at now with the out-of-district placements. You anticipate a little, usually we look at maybe a 2% increase in the tuition itself and calculate that in. We don't always know that until we get to the end of the year. But that is something that, these aren't anticipated new. These are the current students, where they're placed, and actually just planning for it because we're dealing with them this year. I was trying to look on my notes often. I know when we prepared, we tried to do a count of how many were there. Probably was on your notes, so I didn't write it on mine. But I'll let you know in a minute or two. I know it is.
We can dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll
February.
bring back next month, just as an FYI, usually we can let you know how many those Massachusetts
Yeah.
schools. The reminder that those Massachusetts schools, a year ago I said, these are your pathways kids. So we only call them tuitions because they're in classrooms with kids from elsewhere in Union 61, we divide out the cost.
Is collaborative considered pathway?
Collaborative is.
not.
No, exactly, it's SWIP,
Right.
it's
That's what I thought.
right, it's your Southern Worcester County
Yeah.
Collaborative, you grow, you grow students. And again, all Sturbridge students, so these are not all elementary age, some of them are secondary age.
Right.
I think we have a couple more pathways students from other schools, or pathways or step. Last year, we were saying, like, almost all of these are actually Sturbridge students, so should we come to a time where we don't really call them tuitions and move all of that money and the cost of all of that staff into your special ed? We do have a few more coming, right, we do have a number coming from the Union 61 schools, so, that's not, well, as you can see, I mean, that's not really what's driving, that one's down, so maybe you have one less of your own there, but we do have a number of collaborative placements this year that we're addressing. So,
So we'll see what you bring us before
Yeah.
February.
right,
now,
here, I
though.
mean, a first pass at 3.5% isn't horrible. We've had some much more painful first passes. So we look to see what's the state looking at to help us fund this. We also look, maybe not by February, but by the March meeting, I also know what Tantasc was looking like, because I really tried, while we are separate and kind of dysfunctional, I tried to go to each of the 5 towns and present what's the cost of all of their students to educate this year versus next. So I'll often combine what it looks like Tantasc was gonna need with this budget and say, you know what, this is up 3.5. It's not gonna be pretty for Tantascwa, but let's pretend this was up 3.5, but Tantascwa was only up 2.5. I'd be saying, overall, we're asking for a 3% increase for schools. Is that reasonable? Typically, yes. I will say, Tantascwa's share, piece of the pie, is up. The Sturbridge's share is up like 2 full percent when you divide it out within the school. So that's gonna come into play when you divide out their assessment. I think they're the only of the 5 towns that actually has an uptick, and it's a big uptick, so that's likely to have not a positive impact to the bottom line, but again, we gotta wait and see how much state money we get to put towards that and go from there. But 3.5, I feel like we've had a lot worse. I'd love to be below 3. That's something that I usually feel pretty comfortable going in and asking the town for something 3% or low. But let's wait another month and see how things are. We'll come back with a little bit of information that we promised, and if you think of anything else, give me an email and I'll get it for you. Okay?
Thank you.
All righty. That covers finances.
Phew.
I know.
Communications that are in there, we saw. So we're on to, were there more? Just the thank yous and the.
The thank yous for Project
Project
Lead the Way.
Lead the Way.
Yep.
We're on to you.
So as I said earlier, enrollment, we were showing an 895 figure, but we have had 9 students enroll and 1 student withdraw, which is, typical to get. This is the time of year that we do see enrollments, but it's a pretty high number for us this year. Want to start off by thanking Lisa Munoz, the entire Burgess staff, and the members of the community for supporting over 50 Sturbridge families with food and gifts the holiday season. It is definitely a beautiful way to wrap up the year, and very proud of everybody for all of their hard work. As you're aware, MCAS is coming. The window is March 30th through May 22nd. We have set dates, and those will be going home to families so that they can plan accordingly in the near future. Professional development, you may have received the message. We scheduled professional development for Friday the 17th, which was a full day, is now going to be a half day for students and a half PD for staff in the afternoon. So thank everybody for the flexibility and understanding on that. Dr. Nozick had done a deep dive looking at historical snow days. And
We never have 4 in
there had
December.
never been a single cancellation in the
Since I
month of
started tracking
December.
in 2011.
Since
We've had early
2011.
release.
Oh, we've
had
had
delays.
4 in 2011.
One early release, one
Exactly.
delay,
Yeah.
but
We've had those October.
So
Right, we had the
No, we
October.
had
November.
high school November, but
We
the
had no
actual
December, but
month
the
of
October,
December,
yeah.
never.
Yeah.
was
having
there.
4 in December weeks is a little nervous, so it was great to get.
Well,
to
and then,
that.
and then the optimistic Dr. Nozick would say though, when we had the ice storms and lost like
We had
3 in
I like
October,
data, yes.
literally
I like
nothing
data too.
in
It-
January and
so let's hope.
February, so
Okay.
let's
The years
hope.
that we had early.
This
The
happens.
year we lost October 31st, and the
remember.
first week of November, we only had one additional snow day in March. So I'm going with that, the
Yeah.
early snow
Yeah.
day.
Last year we did well.
Yeah.
We will
Let-
do
Keep
let's
our
hope.
fingers
Let's
crossed,
hope.
right?
But this was an opportunity, obviously, to take advantage of a day. We moved, the
Thank God.
speaker
Yeah,
was,
can't
This
miss a
week
day.
we
the
were on
speaker who was
vacation, that
talking
was
about
worse.
kind of the passion for teaching and the importance of the job was totally flexible. He's like, yeah, we understand, I can come in the afternoon, so it worked out great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
well done.
So we'll be
Put one
sending.
back on the books.
Health classroom updates you can peruse at your leisure. Lots going on, lots of really great learning and just exciting things overall. Health office, we have installed some emergency call buttons in some of the staff restrooms in a response to a situation that we had here that made us a little worried that we needed some way for people to communicate. Comfort Zone Day Camp was held at the high school on December 7th. It was a great day and just the feedback, I actually had feedback from a parent recently about how positive it was. Music, I'll skip down to music department, and what I just want to do is just shout out to Bob Krilovich and Dan Minchoff for what happens here over a number of weeks in December. I was at the senior center for Bob's last concert and realized that he has 8 concerts from the first week of December until the Wednesday before we went on break. It's a lot, it's an awful lot, so just thank you to the department.
Did you
and
have
the
enough
kids.
capacity there for all the attendees
We did okay.
at the senior center?
The senior center was great, yes. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
I actually want to shout out to Kathy for how she handled some very spur of the moment changes to the concert and how she kept a smile through several of the concerts, especially the evening one where we suddenly had a change in our capacity and made some adjustments. Well done.
Thank you.
All righty, so to piggyback a little on what we started to chat about, which was the calendar, so we did change the 17th. The only other, just as we look ahead, the only other sort of flexible day without impacting a vacation would be Good Friday. That's a full holiday, but we would have to do a little bit of work to see if staff was available or things like that. Again, I will be cautiously optimistic that the pattern of early pre-Christmas vacation snow days nets very little snow day action after the first of the year, but to be continued, we will see what happens. So the half day, we're able to do that right now. The last day of school by buying back the 17th as a school day would be Wednesday, June 17th. So we still do
We're
have
still
plenty
okay.
of time. Yeah, we're not up against, 4th of July or anything like that. So.
Which is
we're
out of
1 year.
contract
Yes,
anyway.
Yeah, something about working New Year's, old money or something that people don't like, the state doesn't like, so, but we're gonna hope that just doesn't happen. So we're making that change. Also, when the joint meeting approved the calendar for 2021, it was presented pretty much to be parallel to the early release days that we had this year. The early snow days this year drew my attention to something that I think I just didn't look at, which was, why do we have an early release day the Wednesday after Thanksgiving? So I went back to calendars, probably 15 years, and I started combing through, and I really can't find the rationale for why it changed to be right after
That PD?
the Thanksgiving break, except to assume that it was likely needed. The schools start to do, believe it or not, PNPs and start to get setting up MCAS. And on a year that Thanksgiving is early, you have 2 weeks on a year like last year. And what next year will bring, it's quite late, which means we all come back on Monday and we have a half day on Wednesday. So we will be changing that early release PE day next year. So I'll be presenting the new date. We're just capturing some data on parent conferences district-wide so that we're not messing that up. So that I will present in February to you. It's really just a technical.
Because of the fact that before the class of 2005, I think it was 2004 maybe, half-day kindergarten, they switched half-year, and we were always trying to not affect the same kids with
It could have been.
professional development, because there was
It could have been.
complaints,
Yeah.
because if the kids in the first half of the year never had the half-days,
Yeah.
and then the second half were getting the snow days and this and that, and it
Yeah.
was, I think that there was something to do with it. I
There's
think I
definitely
remember.
that. We did move and take the suggestions of school committee saying,
AM,
please
PM.
get off all Fridays.
I'm gonna
because
scour the minutes
same-
back
The
to.
same students.
Right, and it,
So-
I mean, there's also Veterans Day in November too, so, you know, at some point it was trying to spread all of that out, and all of a sudden we weren't spreading it out anymore, because, and Thanksgiving has been getting later and later and later, and
Right.
will be the latest
The
possible.
deadly
Oh,
combination
in
of
Later in
6
the
years.
month.
of late
Yeah, no,
Thanksgiving
better
this year and 4 snow days in
Yeah.
December. It jumped out as my word. We have not had a week. When's the last, I said that before Christmas. When is the last time we had a full week of school? The week before Thanksgiving. I said, this is, we can't do much about the snow, but we certainly can
The kids
control
like
our
it.
PD
Yeah,
schedule.
okay.
So you won't see, my point saying that typically we will post the approved calendar from October and November after the first of the year. Until we actually work that out, I'm not going to bother posting. But it's only that one early release. The rest, start of school, I've already had folks inquire, send me emails, start of school for next year. So that's going to remain. It's just that third PD day. So that will be something we're going to work on. And then kind of a little bit of information, I'm not sure if you received this at your home yet or not, the MASC bulletin speaks a little bit about what actually Deb was referencing related to the budget and the fact that we truly don't have any idea. And I suspect one of the culprits is that the state is looking at what they can financially afford with regard to this 7-year implementation of the Student Opportunity Act. We've heard nothing on good news, bad news. The state income tax, I believe this is the year it does go to 5%, so I believe this is the year that there'll be a slight anticipated reduction in that. Or maybe I have the year wrong. But so interesting reading. It goes through the bullets, talks a little bit about what we would anticipate would be additional or helpful revenue. And what's really important on page, or doctored page 2, is that for districts for whom there would be a reduction in enrollment, they're going to hold harmless again. They're not going to go below the at least $30 per child. That's, again, the goal. But some of these homeless costs, things like that, you know, transportation, it would be great if we could see a little bit of revenue on that. You'll also see one of the components, because the state doesn't give you money for nothing. I won't finish the line.
We're dating ourselves.
Yeah, totally, early 80s. We have to develop a plan, an accountability plan that is allegedly due April 1st, but we're supposed to get a template from the state on what will be this plan. But it will be comprehensive. We would look to access the special impact, PTOs, and for ideas on how to close the achievement gap, especially as it focuses on our high needs group. So that is coming as well. But again, we don't have any template. We've received a guidance from the state. So we will wait. We'll wait. We'll comply, we always do, but still to be continued. But the bulletin did a really nice job at kind of breaking out the Student Opportunity Act for that. And I think that's it, just wishing everyone a happy new year, and we're up to it, and it's Friday tomorrow, you know, so.
So crazy.
It is crazy. You gotta get your.
Feels like a Monday still.
It does. Yeah, leave it on. Thank you.
We are at public access. Subcommittee reports, do we have?
No meeting, no soup.
Right.
Oh, you can cancel. No,
It
it
was-
was,
it
it
was
continued
one
to
of those
ice
days.
into the night.
Oh,
It was one of those.
right.
I was afraid of it.
I know.
Go to the cornerstone.
It was
I'll
tough,
go with
it
you.
was
I'll meet
tough.
you at the Cornerstone
We're like,
Cafe
you know,
for
they
soup.
want the soup, but there's a couple of.
Soup wasn't made, so.
Wait, are the kids who are getting the award, I assume,
They're
coming
coming
to the
in
next?
February,
Oh, good.
yes.
Oh, good.
I will tell you that I do not recall at all that we have canceled a Tantasco meeting in my time here. We've put off like student things if it's a
Sure.
canceled day,
Yeah.
but it was still bad that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The roads was still
Oh, yeah.
pretty
It actually got
icy.
worse that day.
It did,
It
that
is.
was the problem, because, you know, in the morning, we're like, all right, you know what, that's fine, it'll clear up, we can still pull this off.
Yeah.
We just won't have kids. We wouldn't have had soup though.
I know.
Because they would, they'd have
I was
cooked it during
thinking
the
that.
day.
I mean, really,
So
what's the
really,
point?
it's just as well that you stayed home.
Go to the meeting if we can't have a soup, so.
Right, right.
I think we made it very clear that the soup needs to come at some point.
Well,
I think it's just me. I might be the only crazy.
No,
I
person.
don't
It's the
think
same
it
soup
is.
at the Cornerstone Cafe, isn't it?
No, but
We'll go.
it's-
I'll meet, like, we'll
Make
meet
sure it's
there
on the
for
menu
lunch.
first.
We can have an open
It's
meeting.
really
there.
that kind
There you go.
of
Post it.
bacon, squash thing.
Ah.
It's just.
For the sake of, we
don't
can
volunteer.
group some of these together.
Yeah, so
So
the
I got
first
it.
batch is second reading,
Got it.
you can go there without even talking.
Upon second reading and adoption, policy.
Talking about finances, boy.
We're done. Stop.
Got it. All right.
Policy BDG, BEC, BEDA, BEDH, IHBG, we can basically, I'll entertain a motion to adopt upon amended second reading.
So,
And a second?
Second?
Any discussion on any of those 6 policies? All in favor? Technically could have done the other, but just, it's
No,
not amended,
yeah,
it's
it's not
cleaner.
amended, yeah.
So, entertaining a motion to adopt, on second reading, the policy IJND.
So moved.
In a second,
Second.
in discussion, all in favor? And the next one, IJNDB, entertaining a motion to rescind.
So moved. Second.
And any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, let me just erase that. Okay, so, new business. Let me just get the motion first, and then if there's any, let's do the first 3. And entertain a motion to amend upon first reading BEDG, BEE, BG,
So moved.
in seconds.
Second.
Okay, was there discussion on this? There, and it's,
Yeah, I'd like to run through all of them to
Yep.
give you a little bit of discussion,
On
but
why?
I'm
Yep.
actually gonna, unfortunately, ask my bylaw committee here. I think this first one is incorrect. BEDG, I think that we probably need to table this because I don't think this is the correct version. If you remember, Mary, I think what we want was an abbreviated, and there's a statement that pretty much is saying the minutes are not intended to give every little detail.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't see that here. I think it's the wrong version, I'm gonna have to bring it
Okay.
back to you.
Is it, it's that note at the bottom, no?
Only be
Yeah,
included in the
that note
minutes
at
of
the
the
bottom
results
says
of the
that.
meeting.
But then, didn't,
The minutes
okay,
are not
so
a
if there is the
transcript of the
note-
meeting, it says.
But
the
that
minutes are
wouldn't
not
be
a-
in it.
okay, no,
So you
okay.
thought it should be
all
in the
right.
body of
So
it?
I just didn't remember the number 2 being as wordy. Maybe I've just forgotten because there's just too many A's.
You're right, I didn't actually remember the
I
arrival and
just,
departure time.
I thought,
either.
I
didn't
prefer to
remember
table
that.
because I felt like we trimmed it
Okay.
down.
Yeah.
But I could be
I-
wrong because there's just
It's
too
funny,
many.
because when I read it today, I was like, I don't remember the arrival and departure.
Yeah,
time
if we could
being in-
table that, that would be awesome. Okay, then we're on the special procedures, which we literally just change the one word instead of all local media, just local media, time to change it.
All is
Right. And that even under the new, right.
Wait, which one is that? Sorry.
So that's BEE, which is really just a small, what looks like cosmetic, actually is substantive. It's,
Okay.
you know, saying, are we really gonna hold ourselves to trying to get a hold of every
What's defining all
Right.
local?
local?
Okay.
Just, we have an obligation to
Yeah.
post these things at least one. Yep. So that is an easy one.
So is this still, okay, so just procedurally, BEDG,
We're gonna
We're going to
table, so we don't want a vote
So-
on that at all.
I now need a different motion, which is we're still gonna move on to BEE and BG. We actually need to
Or I can review verbally all of these, and then you could take a motion all at
Go
once
ahead.
if you want.
do
It's your
that,
call.
but we need to withdraw the motion, so I need a motion to withdraw.
Oh,
Technically,
Yeah.
we do. Motion to withdraw the motion to approve upon amended first reading BEDG, BEE, BG.
So moved.
And second.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, now there's no motions on the table.
right, so
Sorry,
what
Robert's
is your
rules
preference?
makes me
Would you rather
just go
motion,
through 'em.
talk, and
So this
vote
one's getting
each one?
removed.
Do you want a motion, do you want to just?
We'll do
table
one by
it?
one. So should we
Okay.
do BEE?
Yeah, BE, if you want to vote again over
Motion
with.
to amend upon first reading. BEE.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
And I think we already had discussion? Yes. All in favor? Okay. So, BG.
So BG and BGB, we're going to talk about together, because what you see now is BG and what we want to call BG, we've literally combined the BG and the BGB into one. So you'll know, if you see the BGB, we've moved those items, we literally just took, the whole thing and added it
Okay,
to, because we just did not think it needed
so
to
we
be
should
two
actually
separate.
rescind first.
Yes,
They're
well,
just out of
ultimately, that's what
order.
we're asking for, is that you rescind BGB
Yep, and then.
and you take on
amend
BG
first.
where it's
Yep.
all sitting here in one
So
policy.
it's just out of order. So, a motion to rescind BGB policy. In a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, and then to accept upon, or amend upon first reading, isn't it accept upon first reading?
Yeah.
Okay, same thing. BG,
So moved.
and any
Second.
discussion,
Oh.
second, any
I'll
discussion?
second.
Oh, okay, any discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? Okay, we are school committee review of regulation.
So, and all of them are amended on first reading because you have them
Yeah.
on your books already, as opposed to the very, just.
We're
accept
amending
it.
and accepting on first reading.
Well, because your final exception is the second reading. So you're
Are we
amending.
accepting the amended first reading?
That's what we're
That's
doing.
what-
It is, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
We're not just amending.
Thursday, that's a Monday.
Accepting.
Oh, my
Same thing.
gosh.
Right?
All of it.
Right?
Absolutely.
Just a
nuts.
friendly amendment to all of them are accepted, and like on the first one's the amended second reading, it's accepted. Well, those are adoptions, so that's fine.
Right.
B should be accept upon amended first reading. It's what
Yeah.
we've always done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we are at school committee review of regulations. Motion to accept upon amended first reading, well, they're all gonna be amended, accept upon first reading BGD.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Any discussion? So we are on to BGE. Motion to accept upon amended first reading, BGE, policy dissemination.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. And we are to EDC. Again, motion to accept upon amended first reading, EDC, authorized use of school loan materials. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Pick one, Karen. I should have offered. And a motion to rescind CHB, School Committee Review of Regulations. We actually should have done that before we did the other one, right? So that was already replaced with the other one. So motion to rescind?
So moved.
And second? Second, any discussion? All in favor? Public access to. Nothing. Then we have no need to go into executive session. Motion to adjourn. So moved. Second, all in favor? Okay.
Not bad with all that
Got through
work.
it. Lots. January's always busy. I do have a question for you guys, it's not part of the meeting though. Yes. It's okay. It's okay.
This is really just.
I would entertain a motion to appoint as a temporary chair to run the meeting. Mary Beleza to run the, Mary Beleza to run the.
I'm gonna have to go through
all
that.
those policies.
You're gonna have to do all those policies.
Second
I think
reading,
I
we won't
can just
send you
appoint,
one.
can I just appoint, or is it a vote?
Even if they do, we won't.
I'll make a motion. Could I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. So, if I don't change my flight, which at the moment, who would want to
Yeah.
not be in Florida in February? Super Bowl.
It should be.
Oh.
So do you want to adjourn the meeting now?
Motion to, Mary had a question though while we're back in session. She had a question about a bill.
Oh.
So while we're back in session. we
It
can
was
ask
more,
her.
it looks as though.
Sorry, sloppy. Not my best work. Unless a person wouldn't reopen.
Student activity, is this fundraising funds? It was, okay, so there's two parts to it. There's one grade 6 boundless adventure for 2025 going to, looks like a ropes course. And then there's also
That's been
6,000.
decided?
That's the, it's $6,750, just warrior welcome event expense, $50 per
Yes,
student.
that you're sending funds up.
And so that's money that's just been in the fundraise, the account that they've already fundraised, and also I did just want, I didn't realize we had picked,
Yeah.
we had decided
I don't
on
think we
that.
ever had
So
the right to
boundless-
pick, but.
Well, no, yeah, just-
So,
didn't realize.
I don't recall the date off the top of my head, it's the week
So it's
of
in
like
there.
20, what is that?
Which day?
Boundless Adventure. 'Cause we
Boundless
knew the May
Adventure
15th date is the
is
Warrior
May
Welcome.
28th.
Mhm.
May 28th with a rain date June 8th.
Right.
They're going to like a ropes course in Rybrook.
In Berlin, yeah, it's
Oh.
in Berlin, Mass.
Oh,
And then after we,
Berlin, Mass.
so we're going to do that for the day, and then after the fact, we're going to go to Wachusett Mountain for a barbecue.
is that gonna be, sorry, go ahead. You have the floor. Just the, is that just Burgess or is that everybody?
Just workers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone else is just getting on the Project O train
Yep.
that
Okay.
they've never had before, and then the warrior welcome.
I'm just struggling because one of the biggest reasons was, first of all, we didn't have a place to go, but it, finding something that fits in a standard. This is just a social day? Obviously,
No,
it's a rope course,
it's team building, it's leadership.
but it doesn't align to
And,
standards.
well,
I
and
mean, that
also
could be
remember,
anything.
there's no guarantee this is gonna continue for future
Right, this is
classes.
a-
This is
this
because
is
this
just
class
a one-
there's
Because they had
because there's added-
fundraised and they had.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, there's funds there.
And we still go to
It
Project
just
O.
feels like we
spend
talked
on
about
that
the fact
class.
that we didn't do
Yes.
things because they weren't in the standard
Yeah.
and then they're going to.
Yeah, no, this is a,
I just struggle with
Class
it. It was a big
reference,
reason why we
raise these funds.
didn't do it.
This has been
I
done.
understand that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
one of the reasons why things didn't align is because it didn't align to the standards, which I hate anyway, but, and then now we're taking a full day that isn't gonna, I'm guessing there's no standards.
Well, there are social
maybe
emotional
some of
things
it,
and things like that, so.
Which would have been a
That's the point.
yeah, maybe
Right.
a fee.
And remember, standards is still on many reasons.
Yeah, no, I know,
Probably
but,
some-
people.
There's probably some physical education standards.
There you go.
Which again,
When will this be communicated to the parents?
So some communication did go out. I'll make sure that we just confirmed all of our dates right before we went on break. That's why the deposit was necessary. So we'll communicate with that.
And so this 50 per student, is that, you know, like,
That's the
Estimate?
estimated cost for the event we're putting on up at Tantasco.
Right.
That's
DJ,
for me,
bling
so
bag.
we build out to all 5
Had to
schools,
come up with-
get us the
Bling
money
bag.
so we can start paying for some of the
Okay.
things we're planning to do in May.
okay,
Yep.
And that's
We're
everything.
doing a goodie bag,
Yeah,
exactly, pulling them all together.
yeah.
After school.
That's, yeah,
This
that's
is
for
really
everybody.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, right after school, right here.
Another motion to adjourn. Any more discussion? To reopen, to close it down? Do we have to roll? I think we do have to roll. No, just to reopen. You can just have a motion to adjourn. If you're going into executive session, you have to roll call out, that's all. All in favor? Okay, no more. Meeting is closed
Alrighty.
at
Mary will be the chair.
7:47. But I just realized